Greetings. We're here this evening with Josh Christian from the mighty TOXIK to talk about all things toxic and more. Josh, glad you could make it.
Thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. I still have fond memories from the show in Bad Oeynhausen, Germany. That was really kick-ass.
That was a good day.
Yes,
it was absolutely. A good show. It's a nice hang. It's just a good day.
Absolutely. No, you guys were on fire, really. It was awesome to see you guys. How was the tour overall for you now?
Lost you. Hold on. I have to. 1 second. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Hold on. I guess I'm back. Let me put on Do Not Disturb here. Hold on. Because my phone rings quite a bit. I thought, like everyone's these days, right? Okay, there you go. All right, that won't happen again.
No worries. So how was the tour overall for you here in Europe?
It was fantastic, and thank you for saying we were on fire at that show. That was a good night. That was a good date for us. The tour was excellent. It did exactly what we hoped it would do. We got out there and we reconnected with some old friends. I think we probably earned a few new friends.
Very good.
Got a chance to, reconvene as a unit and get our band thing together. It was great.
Very good. No, I was checking. You had quite a few dates going. Were all dates with Heathen, or was it? Did you also do some slots on your own?
No, all of our dates were with Heathen. Heathen had some shows without TOXIK, but we were
okay.
With Heathen. Okay. We opened for Heathen for the whole run.
Okay, great. And for a very good reason, you guys couldn't play as much, or you played one track of This Mortar. Obviously, you're waiting for the album to get out. That's of course logical. I mean, you want people to sort of know the material at least a little bit.
Yeah. It's we actually had made a mistake once before. We played Keep It True back in 2014, and
yes.
We introduced a lot of the material that would have been on the Inhumanity recordings before they were actually out. And we were excited to play our new material. Like any band, you always want to play your new stuff. So we went into that show. This was early on with us coming back and not knowing any better. No, didn't have any advice from anyone. I wish we'd asked somebody, because I'm sure anyone would have told us, like, no, don't go to Keep It True playing new stuff. Play your old stuff at Keep It True. But it was a bit of a tough lesson, but we learned it. And so on this run, we kept our Dismorta tunes to just to the opening track, which is I think probably the easiest to remember, simply because of the title. That was a big part of choosing that song to play.
Yeah. No, awesome. But I think as soon as it's out, you guys will have plenty of material. I've listened to the album. We've talked there in Bad Oeynhausen at the show, and I think it's phenomenal. It's still rotating heavily here on my side, and I had my initial favorites, Devil in the Mirror and Straight Razor, and that's like, and now the other material is unfolding, so it's really awesome. It's awesome, really good.
Thank you very much.
So Josh, take us back a little bit in history. I first got to know you guys from that Stars on Thrash sampler. I think it was a Roadrunner thing.
Yeah, that's a long time ago. Yeah,
that's I think it was way back. I think it was with other bands like Paradox and Pestilence and you name them. And you had Heart Attack on there, I believe.
Yeah.
And since then, I've been really following you guys. I mean, you then followed Think This, and I just checked. I wasn't aware that you did both albums at Tomorrow Sound.
Yes, with Tom.
Okay, amazing. Wow.
Scott Burns engineering.
Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah, Scott, who went on to do all the the gruff stuff.
Our More Sound experience was excellent. We actually got to hang out with a lot of the people that were prominent from that scene at the time, including, Chuck from Death and Rick Ross and Dave Allen and Nasty Ronnie from Nasty Savage.
Of course.
I mean, there was and more. There were a lot of other people too. I mean, on the back of the record on World Circus specifically, and I think on Think This as well, But we thank all of those people. We called them the Southern Metal, the Southern Florida Death Metal Choir, was what we affectionately named them. And those are the folks responsible for heart attack. Like that group vocal is actually that group of guys. Us too, of course, the band as well. But you know, you got some luminaries in that group vocal there. So.
Oh, that's so cool! Wow, it must have been an amazing experience, and
it really was.
And then came a long silence until you guys came back with a few EPs, and I was back then wondering, you know, when are we going to get a full length? And so talk a little about what was the kind of situation like? I mean, did you guys sort of after think this bail out for a while? Was the scenery not optimal?
A little bit of all of the above. That first iteration of TOXIK was around for 5 or 6 years. We worked very hard at growing the band at that time as best we could, but we didn't have a lot of push from the label. We were right at the end of one thing and the beginning of another thing, right? I mean, like we caught, you know, World Circus comes out in 87. I've had people say to me countless times over the years, if we'd come out in 85, if we'd have been out in 84, 85, we quite likely could have been, or might have been one of the bigger bands from that era, because TOXIK sort of had a commerciality. Our songs are catchy. We've always, we kind of have a traditional song structure in our writing. That's me. I write sort of traditionally, but I love to pack weird stuff into that traditional framework.
You just went where?
You there?
Now I can hear you again.
Hold on. It's not muted anymore. I don't know. How about now?
Yeah, you're a bit soft.
No, and you're now. Hold on.
Now you're back. Now you're back.
Yeah. I don't know why that happens. So how far along did you get there? I'm sorry. At what point did I lose?
No, I missed quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay.
You said had you been there earlier in the scene, things might have developed differently for you.
There you go. Okay, so what I said right after that, and we'll assume that you didn't hear it. What I said basically after that was that, you know, we're kind of a quirky band, but that we write catchy material. That I feel that I have a way of writing sort of a traditional format in terms of the song structure that I use, but I like to pack in ear-bending things, melodies and guitar riffing and stuff. So, you know, not unlike Metallica, not unlike Megadeth, I think that that's what really sort of made those bands carry over, was the fact that they sort of had a traditionalism about them going into it. They were just sort of sped up. Slayer's different. Slayer is a very different thing. They really kind of changed music dramatically when they came along. But up until that point, there was sort of this power metal crossover. That's what thrash really was. And we had a pretty strong element of Rush and progressive music thrown in for good measure. I loved a lot. Growing up, I was a Rush fan, Jethro Tull. Yes, I listened to a lot of my parents' music, basically.
Okay.
So I listened to a lot of that, and that comes out in our stuff early on. Okay, so to your question, this is what I was headed towards. So we're a bit of an in-between. Like, we've got this progressive element. We're kind of thrashy. We don't look like Slayer. We don't look like other bands. We're just really an anomalous sort of little act. We were very unique. And I honestly think we sort of were hard to market for the label. I think we were hard to get across. I think that we had plenty to connect with for the audience. I think if Roadrunner had been a bit more creative in their thinking with us, that they probably could have gotten us even as late as we came to the table. I still think that there would have been a market, but there's a lot of should have and could have in all of this.
Yes.
So what it really comes down to is we were not being handled correctly by the label. Time wasn't working in our favor. It was working against us. The scene was transitioning. Bands like Pantera were coming into metal, and overall the world was moving towards grunge and Nirvana. The early 90s were a real transition. And I think we all kind of felt the it was a combination of not having a lot of support from the label and sort of music changing so substantially in such a short period of time. I think we were all kind of like, what the fuck, you know, like, what do you want to do?
Yes.
And John Donnelly, the rhythm guitar player, and I both wanted to go out to California to go to Guitar Institute. Like, this was something we had talked a lot about, and it was something I wanted to do. And he went first, and I followed him out there. I went out 6 months later. I taught the next semester, but he and I were really the deciding factor in why TOXIK folded at that time. We both wanted to go to school, and it was just time to do other things. So that was that. As far as what went on since then, we didn't really reconverge ever. The band, for whatever reason, I think that some bands start out as being friends and then stay together. TOXIK was really put together around the music. We weren't like a bunch of guys that hung out at each other's houses when we were kids. We became friends through the band. So when the band dissolved, so did our friendship, so to speak. Like, I love those guys, but I wasn't hanging with them before the band came along. And once the band was gone, there wasn't a lot of hanging to do with them afterwards.
Yeah.
So life carries on, and I went out to California. And like I said, John and I both went out to California. Mike actually was out there from World Circus as well. So, which sort of like totally contradicts what I just said about us not hanging out with each other after the band. But it was more or less like we just moved out to California. We're all New Yorkers. We wanted to go out west. We never talked about putting the band back together out there, the three of us, or anything like that. We just moved on with our lives from there. I got into film score. I was doing film score and other sorts of things within the music industry for a number of years while I raised my kids. Singer Mike, went on with his life. Same thing, found a career, got into doing the things that he did. Everybody just went on with their lives. And then in 2007, social media sort of brought TOXIK back. I started getting messages from people on MySpace, Facebook, before Facebook, though, MySpace really, asking me where TOXIK was. And then I actually got a message from this guy, Jeff Loomis, who I didn't even know who it was. I'm like, who's this? Somebody reaching out to me. It's like, oh, dude, I just want you to know, what a big deal TOXIK was for me. And, it's pumping me up, making me feel good about Think This specifically. And I just told somebody about it. Happenstance that I told somebody, and they're like, dude, that's the guy from Nevermore. Don't you know who that is? And I was like, no, I don't know who it is. I had no idea. I didn't know. But the point is that there was this sort of like following that TOXIK had accumulated over the years. And there was a lot of musicians. We are musicians, music, as I said. And I think that was what brought us back. The music never stopped. We all stayed engaged in music in one way or another. Finding out that TOXIK still had a foot in the door and had a foundation out there was instrumental in helping us pull it back together. It made sense. And of course, the second I started to write for it again, I remembered how much I loved doing it. So it's authentic. It's not a commercial thing. It wasn't like, hey, maybe we can sell records. It was like, hey, maybe we should do music again. And then, holy shit, this is amazing. We love it. So, long answer.
These days, you have to, you automatically have to do it out of love because record sales are ridiculous, So
there you go. Yeah, Zoom is funky. Zoom is very temperamental.
I've had some fun with it. No, but what I wanted to say.
Okay, so say that again. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
If you're going to come back these days, I think it must be by default for the passion of it, because record sales aren't what they used to be, and basically I'm forced to do the live stint. So I don't think anyone can accuse bands of sort of being in it for the dollar.
No, it's not. It's not really commercially viable, and even back in the day, it wasn't like it was big money, and now it's very little money. In fact, it's pretty menial. But I love making music, so.
Yes, it's a passion thing. But I think maybe perhaps timing is even more on your side nowadays, because I think that there's such a resurgence, and all these bands from back then are being celebrated. And and what has changed is the big festivals that are inviting bands like TOXIK. And I mean, I've just checked Nasty Savage is active again. Atrophy is coming back, doing an album. So, wow. I think that's quite an interesting movement at the moment.
So I gave you a fairly long answer on that last question, and it's because I don't want my interviews to all be the same. You know, I could give the same answers over and over, but then that would really suck for both you and I. And I feel like this is an opportunity to be honest, and I hope that you'll edit out what's unnecessary. But in the meanwhile, it's important to kind of keep it real. So I'm really happy that bands like Atrophy are coming back. I did a show in Milwaukee. We played a festival in Milwaukee, and we got to play with Realm. I think I might have even mentioned this to you.
Yes.
And it was so amazing to get to see Realm after all these years playing their music. And as a fan of their music, it gave me a very different perspective on sort of what TOXIK was doing. Like, when you're doing a thing versus seeing a thing, I don't know, it's just different in your mind. And there's almost like a bit of a dysmorphia when you're doing it yourself. And then when you see someone else doing it, you're like, oh shit, I get it now. I see what's happening here. Like, I almost had to see them to see myself. And it's interesting because I've been on the road with Exodus. I've seen a lot of bands from our era that are around and still active. But seeing Realm was special because I really was a big fan, and they are fairly exotic. They haven't made a big comeback. They haven't been around at all. This was them just coming back now, and there was something really romantic about it. It's more than just the nostalgia that's involved. Like, there's really great music there, and it's interesting how well a lot of this stuff holds up. Like, I really feel like Realm live, what I didn't feel like I was listening to music from the 80s. Like, I feel like with TOXIK, when we go out and play and I get feedback about this, people say to me all the time, it's like, dude, you guys are so relevant. It doesn't feel old at all. That's awesome. That's it. When I hear that now, I understand what it means. I get it. It's like, okay, cool. So we are doing something worth doing. It's not just the nostalgia kick for a bunch of old guys that decided playing guitar was cooler than playing golf. Because, I mean, we're at that age where we could be doing that, right?
Yes.
We could be out, buying a midlife crisis car and doing that. But we're not. We're making music. We're still engaging in our art. And there's a bit of a fountain of youth here with that. There's like a reconnection with a young self that I don't think you can get from other things. If I was a high school football star, I would not be able to go out and do what I'm doing now, but I can do what I'm doing now physically and mentally, and I can maybe even improve on it. That's a gift, man. That's a really interesting thing. And luckily for us, our audience has sort of kept pace with that. Our audience is still interested. Our audience is aging with us. There's a genuine love for what we do, and it's just pretty cool, man. I have to say, it's really great to be a part of this. I'm really happy with it.
No, that's what I meant with just checking the scene at the moment, and the fact that bands like TOXIK are around and doing shows and coming around, and in my case, very close to where I live, and that was kind of really amazing. And I've checked so many other groups popping up. Blind Illusion was here a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
it was amazing, and people really celebrate it, and they're really appreciative and support the gigs and come to the shows and buy the merch, and that's, for me, is a very positive sign.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I have a friend of mine, and we kid around about how going out and doing metal shows is a whole lot like going to a Star Trek convention. Like, the Metal Family, the Metal Family and Star Trek conventions are similar people in a way.
Yes,
it's that we're unified by something that we all love. And what's different about the Metal Family versus, say, a Star Trek convention or a convention of any kind that way is that there's still new art. There's still new episodes being made.
Yes.
It's not just the nostalgia. There's a continuation.
There's a performance involved,
Yeah. And new bands coming along doing it, though, picking up Kyle Jackson Black played bass with TOXIK. Kyle Edisey's playing with Heathen. These are guys that are, 25, 30. My singer, Ron, is 31, 32. Ron's born the year that Think This comes out. There is a connection. We're connected through the music. The music is timeless. Again, it goes back to this thing where we're like making an art form that doesn't really get defined by the years ticking by. And that's really cool, man. That's like a really cool sort of, I don't know, man. It's esoteric in a way, right? We're not hung up on age. We're not hung up on anything. We're just doing something we enjoy. That's really cool.
Plus, what I think you guys are bringing back, and that's what I always appreciated about bands like Watchtower as well. And Dave Mustaine did it, and it's this sort of like the socially conscious lyrics, the politically orientated stuff, actually making a statement and putting it out there, and actually having a message with the music as well. Where it's not just what they call pizza thrash. It's about beer drinking and puking and partying. Yeah. So there's a message there.
I like some pizza thrash too. Like I like Lich King. There's some of that shit that I dig too. I think there's a place for that. I think back in our day, Anthrax was sort of like a goofy comedy band, right? With their shorts and their there's always been sort of like that side to thrash. Thrash kind of like has because it's punky. Because at the end of the day, it's got a punk center. So it doesn't have to take itself too seriously. We're a little bit more. Yeah, we're a little bit more proggy. We're TOXIK has always had more of a sort of a prog angle and edge to what we do. So. Change it. It makes us a little bit more self-serious, I think, but we still have a good time. And I mean, you saw the show. Our show is just all energy. We're just pouring energy out. We're not really trying to contain it or, there's nothing contrived. It's very honest and very just, ta-da, here we are. Here's what it is.
Absolutely. That's what I witnessed firsthand. So
yeah, we don't have a plan book. We're not, okay, you fade back here and you do this here and we don't do any of that. We just go out and we play. So in that way, it's true. It's maintained its original spirit.
Definitely. Absolutely. So yeah, basically then came out the first connection I had after a long time after Think This was your Breaking Class EP, and that left me wanting. I was just like, wow, man, like more material. And then to my amazement, couple of months back, I actually saw that you guys are active again, and that this mortar was going to be unleashed upon mankind. And wow, no, really, it's awesome to see you back.
Thank you.
So yeah, you guys are signed to Massacre Records, and saying that I spoke to Brian Zimmerman of Atrophy, and I guess you guys are label mates.
How about now?
Yeah.
Okay, video's back. How about audio?
Yeah, you there?
No, not you yet. Hold on. How about now?
Yeah.
There you are. You return. Scatterling 1974. Is that your inception date?
Yeah, that's my inception date. Yes, and I call myself Scatterling because I'm from Africa and scattered abroad, sort of.
Got it. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that.
No, I was just saying that that it's interesting that that you guys are, I think, label mates with Atrophy on Massacre Records now. So interesting to see. Be awesome to see a cooperation there on a show.
And Trauma as well now is also signed to
from Texas.
Massacre. Yeah, from where is Trauma? No, California. Trauma is Cliff Burton's original band.
I thought they were Texan. Okay.
No.
Okay. Interesting.
Maybe they started out in Texas, but they're Northern California.
Yeah.
Chris and Joe and those guys. They just signed a deal. And Brian, Steffi's friend Brian, I forget is he from Blind Illusion? I forget what band he was at. You just mentioned Blind Illusion. Did Brian sing with Blind Illusion?
I'm not sure
either. But they've got a new singer. I heard the record. He's killing it. He's really, really good.
Yes,
the new record's good. And New Atrophy isn't done yet. They're working on it, right? I think they're in the process of recording, right? So that'll be cool. That'll be interesting. I talked to John, their manager, quite a bit. John and I have become friends. It's good, man. It's good stuff. I like being part of the fam.
So are you guys, what's next on your agenda? Are you doing some shows in the US now, or what's coming up for you guys?
So, well, the record isn't even out. The record doesn't come out until August 5th. So once the album is out, there will absolutely be some support dates around that. I'm for sure coming back to Hamburg for True Thrash in November. There's talk about having us play both nights. Nothing is in stone yet, but for sure we're coming back. There's a very good chance of us going to Japan this year as well. But my hope is that once the record comes out, once we've got, because we went through a little bit of a weird time after Breaking Class. We put out a box set in 18 called Kinetic Closure, which actually took the Inhumanity EP, Breaking Class, and then added a third EP/disc called Kinetic Closure, which is where we introduced Ron singing now. That's his first gig with us. So we really, and then COVID hit. You know, like we were out doing a little support for that, and then COVID, hit and really displaced us and derailed us a bit. So, and it's tough for us because we're an older band. At least we have some older members, and we're just picking up steam, and here comes this fucking virus, right? So, we kind of had to put it back together. So now the album is coming out on the 5th. I'm not exactly sure what Massacre's plan is for promoting it, but my plan personally is to have another record right behind it. And to that end, Ron is going to be here in the next week or so to start vocals on the new record. We're going to start with the follow-up to Dis Morta, so that we have a nice timely succession. And that the hope is that I'm not sure how much of a push we'll get to do with Dis Morta. I don't know, because it hasn't been fully formed yet. But my hope is that I can get the recording for the next record out of the way. Yeah. When Jim comes off a tour with Heathen in September, he can record his drums. We can have something ready to be mixed by October or November. This way, when we go out to support Dis Morta, fall, spring, we've already got the other record in the hopper. And we can just keep going with it. Is
this material you've accumulated during the pandemic, or?
No. This is I'm writing new material. Well, there's some there is a bit of a continuation. I mean, I write a lot, so there's always writing going on. There's always songs sitting around, and I mean, some of the stuff on Dis Morta literally came from 2018, 2019. There was a couple of songs that were a bit older. There was one song on there that was actually from 1984, Straight Razor. Is an old tune, right? So just reworked, and I'm probably going to do that on this record as well. I'll probably pull out an old tune, maybe one of the ones that because we threw some demos up on a couple of the re-releases of World Circus and Think This over the years. There's a track on there called Lost World, which is a really cool TOXIK song. Would have been on the third TOXIK record if we'd have made one back in those days. So I think that may actually get a run on this new record. But there are right now I've got 8 songs that are new and relatively new, and then I figure when Ron gets here we'll write a little bit more together, fill out the record 10, 11, and so by November here comes part 2. And I don't know if we're going to call it Dis Morta Part 2 or what we're going to title it yet. I have a couple different ideas I'm working with title wise, but I really want to get some life out of Dis Morta. I don't know how much of a push it's going to get. I think it's a really good record, and it needs to get circulated. So,
damn right.
Making a follow-up to that record, like doing Dis Morta 2, kind of shoots life back into Dis Morta 1 if we haven't been able to tour it enough. Now we have 2 records that kind of fill out, almost make a double album between the 2 of them, and we can support them both. So I might do that, man. I don't know. Like I'm not sure, but something that makes sense to get us out there supporting our music. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your solo material. I found it very interesting. Had to listen to
that. So you went to Bandcamp and listened to some of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So on Bandcamp, joshchristian.com or bandcamp.com is a collection of my alternate artwork or music that I do. It's an interesting, you've heard it, so it's a very diverse collection of things. There's some of my film scores there. I've actually got some of my singer-songwriter folkier stuff there. There's a classic rock band on there called Brother Nature, which is sort of, it's just eclectic. It's my other personality musically.
Nice. And you do all the vocals as well, huh?
Yeah, in fact, on most of those records, I'm doing everything. I'm playing everything.
That's quite amazing. It sounded really cool. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was as well. This is sounding very folky, very folk rock.
Yeah. So you touched earlier on having a political meaning and making a message. Metal is not the greatest vehicle for political and social commentary. It's not a bad vehicle, but it's not what it's really known for, right? That's not its thing. Punk, is much more that way.
Yes.
Folk is much more that way. And in fact, in my mind, punk and folk are closer than metal and punk or metal and folk. Like, I feel that punk has, and here's the thinking, that punk and folk are both much simpler art forms. They're much less engaging in terms of the listener's interest. Sonically, you're not listening to the arrangement and the instrumentation, you're listening to the lyrics.
Yes.
So I really feel that it conveys a message. It's a much better vehicle if you're trying to say something. So, that's kind of how I find my way to kind of folkier music, because I can really focus on my lyrics and what I'm trying to say in the song, as opposed to the arrangement. Yeah.
So coming back to TOXIK, are you the lyricist, or does is that more Ron's field as well?
No, well, on Dismorta, Ron and I wrote together. I had a lot of it done. Quite honestly, I really felt because Ron was joining the band, that I wanted him to feel that he was a part of the process. The best way to get a great performance out of anyone musically is to include them in the process, to make it their baby too.
Ownership.
Yep. Really, emotional ownership. So, as soon as it was clear that Ron and I were going to be working together, I just started writing with him in mind, writing for him, thoughtfully, like I'm constructing music that I think will suit him, but then also getting him in on the writing process. I shoot out a line, he shoots me back 2 lines, I shoot him out 2 lines, we come back, and that's how we ended up writing most of Dismorta. We really collaborated on the whole thing, except for 2 songs. We wrote the whole record together.
Oh, that's amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It gives everybody the necessary impetus to,
I'm a socialist, man. I believe in a shared experience. I think that we're all better off when we're sharing both stress and happiness. It's a family thing that it becomes when you allow it to be, and it's much better that way. This version of TOXIK gets along better than any version we've ever had before, simply because that's really the philosophy behind it. Like, everyone does have a say, and sometimes it's a little messy. Democracy is messy, but it's better to have everyone engaged and pulling together, as opposed to hanging under one guy's sort of, energy and thrust. Don't get me wrong, I'm still sort of the focus of TOXIK. I have the vision. I have to lead it I'm the oldest member, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So there's just a certain role that I inherit just by the virtue of what I do. But it doesn't mean that I can't share as much as I possibly can, and I do. And to that end, Jim, the drummer, is heavily involved in the production, in the business. Ronnie's involved in the production. Eric is involved, the guitar player. Eric writes and is involved. And Shane is involved, the bass player. Shane is currently doing a couple of different things. That's why he wasn't on the tour. He's just opened up a music store. He's got a synthesizer shop that he opened up here in Syracuse, which is really cool. And he and his wife are starting a family, and that takes time, and he had to be there for her, so he couldn't make the tour. He wasn't there, but behind the scenes, Shane is just as important as anyone else in the band. And yeah, man, is all the video that you see of us, the YouTube channel, like anything that's out there that way, that's pretty much Shane has been doing that. Hopefully he continues to do it with us. Hopefully he keeps going, and his life doesn't become so busy that we have to find someone else, because I really, really love having Shane in the band.
For sure. Definitely. Yeah. Otherwise you have a sort of Dave Mustaine situation where you just hire and fire it. That's basically
the alternative. And I love Kiko. Laredo, but I think he's amazing. And I actually think he's probably my opinion, I know I'll maybe get some pushback on this from some people, I think he's the best guitar player he's had. I love Marty, don't get me wrong, and I really love Chris Poland. But I think that Kiko is probably one of the best guitar players in the world right now. Like, I literally mean that. That guy is just unbelievable. His solo record, Open Source, his solo guitar record, is like the best instrumental record to come out in a really long time for me. Like, I can't get enough of it. I've listened to it so much. So I applaud Dave's tastes in musicians and his ability to keep a cool band together. But I'm bored to shit with Megadeth, and I'm just being honest. Like, I've been bored with them for forever. Like, I feel like it just, I don't know. I get bored with it. And I know you're not supposed to slag people that's not cool to do that, but I'm just going to be honest about my tastes. Like, there's nothing coming off of those records that makes me go, whoa, what is that? Conversely, you mentioned Watchtower earlier. The last Watchtower record was sick. So there's no excuse, you know. You're like, come on, Dave. You know, you know how to make money. You know how to sell your band. Now come up with a song that I want to listen to.
Yeah, I guess the word is it compelling, you know?
Yeah.
No, I think that's the case with a lot of groups. I'm not going to mention names, but the stuff is there. It's solid. I can't find fault with it, but you know, there's just some magic missing. You know,
exactly. Yeah,
that's the.
It's solid. Exactly. It's solid. It's there, but I don't know.
At the end of the day, I think for me, what decides is how often is that thing in my player.
Right. Right.
So I'm going to conclude with another question that I always ask interviewees: is, what was your pivotal moment? What made you decide, number one, that you're into heavier music? And I guess you touched on a few bands there already. You mentioned Rush, and but you know, everybody has that sort of pivotal moment where you go, "Damn it, this is shaking me in my foundations. This is changing me. I'm feeling a change happening here." What is it?
When I was a little boy, my father owned a bar in Greenwich Village, and he worked on Saturday mornings, Friday, Saturday morning, Sunday morning. He'd be in there cleaning up his place, and the musicians' instruments would be there from the night before. So I could sit and bang on drums. I could sit and play an electric piano. I could play the guitar. I could play the bass. I could play anything I wanted to play. Like, if the guitar player left his guitar there, very good chances 7-year-old Josh was going to be getting his sticky fingers on it. Like, I was going to sit and play with it, you know?
Awesome.
And honestly, back in 1970, whatever, I don't think anybody cared that much. But I had that experience very early. Like, I was exposed to live music and musicians and musical culture and artist culture. My parents were artists a lot. It wasn't just music. I was surrounded by academics and painters and writers. And I was surrounded by art, you know, growing up. I never had that moment because it was always what I was going to do. I never thought of doing anything else. It was always what I wanted to do. Picking the genre that I did, I suppose, could be seen as the moment. And I guess you could probably point to, you know, again, I'm a child of my era, you know, people like, picking guitar as my, you know, the thing that I'm going to go out, my weapon for the world, right? Picking my sword, right? Or my wand. Eddie Van Halen, obviously, was huge. Uli John Roth, Scorpions era, Uli era Scorpions, specifically Virgin Killers, really turned me on guitar wise, really made me want to play something. UK, the first UK record with Alan Holdsworth on it. Like, those records, I love Jimmy Page, I love Tony Iommi, I love Ace Frehley. Like, I love rock. But Eddie kind of got me thinking, like, wow, there's more to guitar. And then, like, very quickly in his succession, I found these other guys. And that was what made me say, okay, it's not going to be drums. It's not going to be piano. It's going to be guitar. That was a decision, because up until that point, I played a little bit of everything, and I still do. I compose on piano. I still play, you know, I can't play drums to save my life anymore because I don't have a set. But if I had a drum kit sitting around, I'd be a halfway decent drummer in a month. You know, like, I have drums in me. So it was deciding guitar, and then metal was the obvious choice because that was where you could really shine with your guitar. So that would be how that, I think, ended up being what it was.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what needs to be said about Eddie is also one of my greatest. I have a very high appreciation for Eddie Van Halen. And I think one of the reasons why is that he always played for the song.
Yes.
He was never out there to, I mean, sure, there was flash and, you know, but the thing is, at the end, you never had the feeling like a song had sort of superfluous fat on it. You know, it was always trimmed to the necessary parts, you know, no superfluous notes. Everything was in order to uphold the song.
Yeah.
And I think another one for me is definitely Steve Lukather, who Also, yeah, well, also one of the guitar greats.
Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm going to make you repeat everything you just said because I really want to hear that. Hold on, this stupid thing. There it is. Now you're back. It's, I keep thinking it's something to do with my phone. It's not. Zoom is just dropping the call. Okay, so please say that again because I love Eddie Van Halen.
I was just saying why Eddie Van Halen for me personally is one of my greatest guitar influences because I play as well. And but yeah, it's because he never overplayed. He was always the focus was always on making the song and what's good for the song. And that's probably why I'm also a very huge appreciator of people like Steve Lukather, who just, it was never just a shred fest, it was just more about,
Interesting. Maybe that's why you get with TOXIK a little bit too, because I always look at my solo sections like they're their own sections. Yeah. I'm not really necessarily trying to although on Dismorta I am playing a lot of guitar, it's not just guitar for guitar's sake. Like I'm trying to make mini compositions within the composition. I've always done that. And getting back to Eddie, I won't lie, man, I cried like a baby when Eddie died, because like Eddie's like sort of my dad. And like, I've had a lot of fathers and Eddie is definitely one of them. And the thing that made Eddie magic for me, like you said, he played for the song, and you could see the progression in his work. Like if you listen to the first, and Dave Lee Roth is the one that hit me to this, actually. I heard Dave talking, and he's 100% right about this. The first couple of records, Eddie is playing stuff that he came up with live, and he's playing really within the song. He's playing from his rhythm part. He's going right from playing chords right into the solo, and that's how they recorded a lot of that stuff. By the time you get to Fair Warning in 1984, it's changed. And now he's tracking. Doesn't mean that he's lost his edge. He hasn't. But I would say if you listen to the solo in Atomic Punk versus the solo in Push Come to Shove off of Fair Warning, you can hear the two different artists going on there. And both are brilliant. Both are like magicians. You know what I mean? Like the young, straight up adrenaline, testosterone young Eddie, and then the thoughtful studio master craftsman on Push Comes to Shove. Both of those characters, man, really, really, like for me as a young guy growing up in watching that, huge impact, huge. And then of course Steve Vai comes along, and Steve Vai takes that whole studio guy thing up another level, like with the Frank Zappa influence. Like I really respect, I respect craftsmanship in the studio. Interesting, just total change of subject, but as long as we're on it, played Into the Grave with Decapitated. I love Decapitated. Varg is a fucking genius, and they pull it off live. They're sick live. That was like the high point of the run for me. Actually seeing that show, I totally fanboyed out when we were in the green room, when we were back. I like stuck my head in the room 3 times like, no, I'm serious. You guys are like amazing. Like I think they were getting annoyed. I think they were like, who is this old guy? But man, I just, I had to say it for what it was. It was like, I felt like there was a time when, I was doing something that was kind of like really on the edge. And now I listen to these guys and I feel like they're doing something that's on the edge too. But just in terms of the quality of the art they make, what they're making and the sounds and just, yeah, man, it never gets old for me, brother. I love it. You know what I mean? Like
it's amazing. It's really amazing. And then you look at bands like Meshuggah and it's kind of, those rhythms, it's incredible. I mean, me as a guitar player, I would be out of the song by minute 1. It's kind of.
I listened to Bleed yesterday. I was listening to a Google playlist and Bleed came on, and I haven't listened to it for a while. And I really got to hear what was going on with the right hand and the kicks, and it's just that that syncopation that's going on there. Again, just breaking ground with that, man. And, before you heard that, you really hadn't heard anything like that. That's really that's got its place in the halls, No,
but definitely to come back to TOXIK as well, and that's what I feel is especially also on this mortar is you're throwing in a lot of hooks and curves and stuff, but I have the feeling with every track I'm listening to a solid composed track. I always feel like I'm in this track now. what bugs me is bands that are technically very proficient and virtuosos and all that, but the songs feel like they've just been sort of stacked together.
Yeah,
and it's just basically to show off. Okay, I can do this, I can do that, but it leaves me disoriented. It leaves me I can't get a catch on this. I find it very strenuous to listen to.
Interesting.
There's no catch to it. There's nothing that keeps you hooked. And that's what I definitely feel is the case with Mortar. The songs stand for themselves.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's a really cool compliment, and I appreciate it. And I read a review from, I forget what mag. Somebody gave us a review the other day, and it wasn't all that great. It was a 7 out of 10. They actually had exactly the opposite feeling. He felt that my songwriting was all over the place and he couldn't get with it. But he also, at some point in the interview, and again, people's opinions are people's opinions. I'm cool. I try to listen to everybody's opinion on things. I get the feeling that the guy doesn't know our older material, because he says at one point in the interview or in the review, he says, thrash is supposed to be simple and you're supposed to be able to latch right on. And right off the bat, that made me think to myself, like, okay, you didn't listen to the old TOXIK. You don't really know where we're coming from. So it's probably sounding left field for you. And that was his thing. Like, we just tried too hard. We went off. It's just chaotic and it's crazy and the guitar player's nuts and blah, blah, blah. And, I just get the feeling he doesn't know where we were coming from is what it was,
that to me is I'll say it straight, is what I call a disqualified ranking. It's just, I think, as you said, you need to know the material, the earlier material. You need to know where TOXIK's coming from. Yes. And what I will say is
there's a story there.
My first spin of this Mortar was, not everything revealed itself right away, but in a positive way. It sort of, all the nuances came out, and the song sort of, opened for me.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple people say that too. And the way I take that, the way I look at that is, as a listener too, especially, that sometimes, and we touched on this when we were at the gig, that a record that hits you right off the bat sometimes is good for only a couple of listens, and then you got the joke. When you have something that's revealing itself to you, it's more of a movie, it's more of a book, and you're getting to experience it. So one last point. I know we're going to wrap it up, but I wanted to say something, because you just said something really interesting. And thanks, man. Thanks for the time. It's a nice talk. It was a nice talk at the gig too. You're a good guy. I like talking with you. As listeners, all of us, there's so much to listen to now. And you were just saying before, like sometimes it's technically right and it's well written, but there's just nothing, it's not grabbing you. I would submit, and I hear what you're saying, and I agree with that too. But I almost feel like, I wonder too, if part of that isn't because there's so much available to us. We have so much material to listen to, that depending on your mood in a given moment, there's so much shit coming at us all the time now, that if my cup of coffee this morning wasn't great, your music's liable to not hit me just the right way. And I might have heard that at another time when I was ready to hear it and ready to experience it, and it would blow me away. So I almost feel like we're getting, it could be a bit of both. I agree with what you're saying, that there's, and there's always been that thing. There's a mediocrity is in the eye of the beholder, just like beauty. What is mediocre to me or you may not be mediocre to someone else. And there's a reason that somebody latched onto it enough to say, I like it enough that I bought it, and here it is, it's out here, or I liked it enough to produce it and I put it out there. So there's love in it somewhere. Everything has that going for it. I try not to be too, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be that guy all the way. But I would say this, and this is really where I was headed with it. You kind of have to have that sort of safe gray area in the middle, so that you can have something that's really radical, so that you can have something that pops up and is like, what the fuck? You need that. You need the rest of that for this to stand on its own. And the WTF piece may not be for everybody. It may not be something that you want to listen to all the time, because it is abrasive, or it is jarring, or it is hard to get your head around. But if it wasn't for the really mediocre stuff, this wouldn't seem so out there. And I'm glad for the mediocre, because it gives me a chance to play off of it.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Yep, for sure. But you're 100% right. I mean, there is just so much coming out. It's almost impossible to digest it all. And it also depends on your frame of mind. And maybe you'll pick up something later, a couple of months later, and then it sort of unfolds, and that's just how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, no, I find myself doing that all the time. I've become a big Gojira fan. I'm loving Gojira. I'm loving Mastodon. Man, people were
amazing.
Amazing. Hushed and Grim is so good, man. What a And now?
Yes.
Am I back? How about now?
You're back now. That's it.
No.
Hello.
You're back.
Okay, cool. But Josh, let's wrap it up. I think it was awesome.
Okay.
Godspeed with everything. For everybody that's watching, the album is out on, what did you say, 5th of August?
5th of August, yes. We've got another single coming out on the 12th, Power. Our first single came out while we were on the road. We've got a new single coming out. There will be a video with that coming out on the 12th. And then the title track, This Morta, will come out right before the album itself comes out, August 5th.
Excellent. So guys, keep your eyes peeled. I'm going to post all the necessary links below, whichever way you want to reach the band. And yes, get the album, buy the album, go see the shows, and support this wonderful band. Josh, it was awesome having you on the show. Thanks for making the time, and Godspeed.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
I'll let you know when the post is up.
Excellent. Okay.
Do that.
Talk to you soon.
Have a good day. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.